Basketball Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Indiana Basketball Weekly is right now not brought to you by anybody because this is our first show of the year. If you're interested in being a sponsor of the show, you can hit us up on Twitter at Grueling Truth, or you can email us at thegruelingtruth@gmail.com. I'm your co-host for Indiana Basketball Weekly, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I want to welcome in my co-host, and yes, he's back from last year. I know he's getting older. I think he's doing it from a nursing home this year. Help me welcome to the show, 1981 national champion, Steve Risley.
Mike, good to be back. Good to be talking basketball again. Sick and tired of talking about NASCAR and golf and baseball, and got a little bit of football. I'm already burnt out on too much football, but now we're getting into the meat of what sports is all about, and that's college hoops in the United States of America. So it's going to be good, but I think the big news, too, is I am no longer the only co-host of this show. And we have got something special lined up for you guys this year.
Yes,
so, Mike, without further ado, introduce our new co-host.
Yeah, we have a new co-host. And, last year we got a lot of people listening to the show, but I'd get kind of emails like, who's Steve Risley? Did he play during Peach Basket era? So we figured we would go out and bring in somebody more relevant. So help us welcome to the show one of the most popular Hoosiers of the last decade, Collin Hartman. How you doing, Collin?
Doing great. Good to be here. Appreciate you guys. Really looking forward to getting back in the swing of things. It's going to be weird being one of the guys that's actually on the radio and not on the court.
So what is it like for you not to be playing right now? I mean, is it something that's driving you nuts, or are you kind of glad it's over with?
I think, I think it's going to hit me when it's already hit me a little bit, seeing stuff on social media, their workouts and everything like that. And I think it's really going to hit me when I go to a game or watch a game on TV. It's just going to hit me like a brick wall, or even Hoosier Hysteria when we go to there. That's going to be an obstacle to climb too.
Steve?
Yeah, well, no, yeah. The one thing I pray for you is that you, like us former players from the 70s and 80s in the night era, you don't have sitting next to the band in the north end zone. Spending an entire game in a seat built for somebody 5'8", which you're 6'8", and you got the tuba blaring in your ear all day. Hopefully you still have enough posture down there that you can get a decent seat, like behind the bench or something like that. I know I haven't done it in the last 10 years that I started going when I was going to games. Said, the heck with that. I never wanted to learn to play the tuba. I was never interested in the tuba, and it wasn't a lot of fun. So,
is that why you can't hear now?
Huh? What?
Is that why you can't?
What?
That's because he's old. My question to you,
that too.
This. Steve has told me since I've known him, I coached Collin Hartman in AAU basketball. What was it like being coached by a legend like Steve Risley? And do you have any good Steve Risley stories?
Yeah, I have a few.
Any you can tell on air?
Majority of those. That's what I was saying. Majority of those should not be shared on air. But yeah, I mean, wow. It was fun. I grew up with his son, Ross, and we hung out literally every single day in the summers and everything like that. And so our team had really good chemistry, and I felt like I had a green light at all times. Steve would just pretty much let me shoot whenever, as long as it wasn't a stupid shot. But yeah, AAU was fun. It was a little less structured than, no offense, Steve, a little less structured than college level or even high school ball.
Well, it was that way by design. I think at that age,
right.
AAU, about the age you were playing with us, is kids got to figure themselves out, where their skills are and where their talents are. And to pigeonhole a kid into a more of a structured environment right now, and saying that you're going to be the point guard, or you're going to be the shooting guard, or you're going to be the defensive rebounder. At that age, I think is really doing an injustice to the kids. I think you want to give every kid a chance to shoot the ball whenever they can, As long as they're not
Agreed.
making the same mistake over and over again, or they're not getting what you're trying to do, and they really don't have the aptitude to play a certain position, then you start sliding them in a little bit different direction. But my mentality was always, this. One, as an AAU coach, I wanted every kid to go to their parents after each season that we played together and said, Mom, Dad, I had a great time. Can I go back and play on this team again? And that's the most important thing, I think, at that age. And we lose sight of that because of the competitiveness involved in it all. And there are AAU programs and teams that are out there, such as the elite Adidas teams and the Nike teams and all that do it that way. And maybe that's good for the upper echelon kids. But my mentality was always, let's make the kids have fun. We always went to Subway after a game, did we not, Colin? We all sat as a team together. And then we always came back to my house. You destroyed my basement. You snuck out of my basement. You ran around. You played Xbox. You all spent the night at my house on tournaments after games. My wife got up and got you all donuts in the morning or pancakes and fed you all. But you played together as a team, and you built friendships with each other. And I think at that age that we were all playing together, that was much more critical than trying to say that Collin's going to be a Mr. Basketball and a three-point shooter. Of course, every player had the green light to take a shot if they felt that there was a shot within their capabilities. We didn't want anybody to shy away from doing anything. And I tried to create that environment. Most of the kids that played on my AAU teams played on other subsequent AAU teams as well. Collin played for, I think, Adidas Elite. Didn't you, Collin? Weren't you part of the Adidas Elite program as well?
Yeah, I played for Indiana Elite in my last year or whatever.
Yeah, Indiana Elite. And so he was getting that structure he needed there. But I wanted Collin to be able, and players like Collin, to be able to express themselves and try things that they weren't going to maybe given the opportunity to do because they were getting pigeonholed. So there was a method to my madness. And the second thing the question I wanted to hear was, what's in the cooler for treats after the game? I thought that was relatively important as well too, still at that age. And we always made sure we had great tweets. So there was a reason for that. And I think most of the kids that I had the privilege of coaching or working with or playing on a team that I directed or coached walked away from it with a good feeling in their heart about the game. And that's what I really wanted to accomplish for these kids. They were going to get more structured coaching down the road.
Exactly.
All right. Let's go ahead and let's talk a little Indiana basketball. You, of course, played under Coach Miller last year in his first year with the Hoosiers. So last year didn't go the way everybody wanted it to go. But now he's got some guys that have been there, and I think he's got a group that he wants to be there with. There's not something where you inherited somebody here or not. What do you think the preseason focus under Coach Miller is right now?
I think just getting everybody on the same page and getting everybody to buy in, to be completely honest. I think it's a huge advantage to this team this year. A, having a lot of key guys come back, and B, just having a year under their belt of the system. Being in Coach Miller's system, knowing how practices, day-by-day activities go, being able to have the guys that have been in it mentor the young guys, mentor the new guys. Because last year we kind of find ourselves, even though it was a smooth transition, we kind of find ourselves, everybody was learning at the same time. We were all, in a sense, freshmen. We were all learning a new system at the same time. So really the only expertise we could bring was we'd played college basketball before. We played at the level. We know what it demands day by day. But at the end of the day, we had no clue what day-to-day activities were going to look like or practices or even the structure of practice. Even down to the names of drills. We were all learning all of that at the same time. So I think that's going to be a huge thing is just they have a year under their belt, and then everybody can fall in line and be mentored and be pulled along and push together. So I think it's a big thing for this year's team to be able to come together as a unit and be able to look up to those older guys that have been in the system.
Hey, Collin, were your practices last year and going into this year, are they structured pretty much? I mean, does he stay on a timeline and work and use that exact amount of time and then move on to other things? Or does he stay with something until he feels he's gotten it right or got it ingrained in your guys' head? I know in our day, we had a minute-by-minute schedule, and it was given to us. It was posted daily when we walked into the locker room, and we were going to focus on that for that period of time, and then we were going to move on. And you just were expected to be in the running and getting it by that period of time. But then we moved on to other things. And in our era, under the night system, we only scrimmaged really about 15 to 20 minutes a game. The rest of it was pretty much all breakdowns between guards, forwards, centers, post play, guard defensive position, rebounding drills, fill the lane drills, things of that nature. How was the structure? How's Coach Miller's structure in practice? Is he regimented, or is he kind of more of a free-form kind of coach?
It's very regimented. We never posted it or anything of that nature. It was never a secret. At the end of the day, though, but I mean, obviously, we'd go through a very dynamic workout or stretch before the workout, before practice. Split up guards bigs, do some skill work really quick, 15 minutes or whatever right before practice, just to get the blood flowing a little bit more as well, and start getting shots up and stuff like that. So that right when coach walks in, you hit the ground running, you get a break in, and then you go. But it was, I believe that they had, we always had an estimated time of how long we were going to spend on something. And if we just flew through it and everybody was clicking, everybody was high level of energy towards the drill and high level of communication and everything of that nature, and executing the drill and the purpose of the drill to a high level, then we would move on early. So it really depended on how well we applied ourselves and how fast we were getting it and how hard we were working at it. If we were everybody knock out a couple reps really well, we'd move on to the next thing. You know, there's kind of like a reward system of, hey, if you do what you're supposed to do and do what we expect of you at a high level and you're getting it quick, then we'll move on. We're going to keep going and keep progressing through practice. But at the end of the day, if you're not working hard, we'll stay in that drill for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It don't matter, because if you're not, as a cohesive group, linked up and all going in at it at the same time at the same level, then we're going to stay in it and get it and do it till we get it right.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting because it go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, it's interesting because in our era, we, no matter if we were getting it right, we just kept drilling it down. And Knight totally believed that until you got it perfect every time, you weren't fully prepared to deal with it. And, you know, he sought perfection, and we stayed with it every single time. And if you didn't get it by the end of the drill, you were then told to stay after practice and pick up a manager or assistant coach or trainer and go do individual drills after practice. There were many times where there was a special circumstance to say I was going to guard a certain player and needed to be working on post defense, shifting my feet around or what. If I couldn't get it in the time allotted for the practice, we would say, Knight would say, Risley, get with Coach Cruz, and you guys give me 30 minutes after practice. And we would be there sometimes until 7:30 at night individually working on it. So he committed full time to everything, no matter what. And it wasn't just like, if you're getting it, we move on. It's like, you're never going to get it perfectly because you're never going to be perfect. So we're going to keep drilling into it until we can get as close to perfection as we can. And we stayed with it. And then when we devoted that time, if you didn't get it accomplished by that time, you moved on to individual drills after practice. It just became an addendum put onto your practice sheet, what you had to get accomplished after practice. And then you were probably called back in before practice started early the next morning to continue to work on, or the next day to continue to work on it. So it's interesting. It's an interesting concept, yeah.
All right.
But then again, we only had one. We had one offense and one defense. We had man-to-man offense or man-to-man defense, and we had motion offense. So we didn't put a lot of the time into the different offensive sets that programs do now, and a lot of defensive schemes. We learned to switch off, when to switch, when not switch, where to be in your man side, your help side, defensive positions, things of that nature. So it's very basic principles that we stayed to. But Knight's philosophy was he would rather be great at 2 things than good at 20 things. And we stayed true to that every single day in practice.
All right, so
interesting concept, interesting change.
During the season last year, I think me and Steve saw a difference in this team. What was that, around middle of January, late January, Steve, where you could see the team, I think, starting to at least partially buy in. I think the team played much better at the end of last season. They definitely had to upgrade the roster. And in the offseason they did. They had a great recruiting class led by Romeo Langford. What do you think the adjustment is for Romeo and the freshmen coming in? You know what that's like. You came out as a highly talented high school player. You come to college. What kind of transition is that for a young man going from high school to college?
I mean, at the end of the day, I'll be 100% honest with you. I was a deer in the headlights coming into college. Obviously, my freshman year didn't go the way I anticipated or anything of that nature. And it's a huge transition. Guys are 4 years older than you, been through countless summers and seasons of very intense weight lifting and conditioning programs and stuff of that nature that you don't typically get in high school. So it's a much bigger jump. But I think the biggest thing, and I mean, I'm somewhat speaking from experience, is keeping everybody healthy. That's a big thing in today's world, and in sports in general. It's just keeping guys healthy so that they can get as many reps underneath their belt as possible. You can watch as much film or watch as much practice as you want, but at the end of the day, if you're not in the drills, going through them, getting the conditioning, getting the mental toughness built up through the whole summer and preseason and everything like that, then you're going to be several steps behind of everybody else. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is keeping guys healthy so that they can get those reps and be integrated into the system fully.
Collin, question for you. Did you guys condition during the season? Does this era condition through the season, or once season starts, do you stop conditioning and focus just on fundamentals and playing basketball and doing the things you need to do to prepare for the opponent that you're going to be facing?
We conditioned a little bit. We mostly, I would say 90% of our conditioning, 95% of our conditioning came through competing, getting up and down, half-court drills, whatever, high-level, high-intensity practices that were bang, 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 drill, 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 scrimmage, stuff like that, there wasn't a lot of rest time. It was turnover drills and stuff of that nature, and getting up and down and guarding 1-on-1 and 5-on-5 and 3-on-2, 2-on-1, stuff of that nature, to make you have to react and react on the fly. And one of the biggest things was playing while under fatigue. And that's a big thing at this level for me, at least, especially these young guys coming in. High school is a little bit more laid back. College, in any given night, I mean, you're playing on, especially at IU, you're playing on national television every single time you step on the court. And so at the end of the day, you have to perform. And the team that's coming to play you, you have a huge X on the back of your jersey. They want to beat you more than anybody. They'll play the whole rest of the year. It doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing is having guys come in, get those reps in, and play with that fatigue. Just because you can't replicate that in any conditioning drill, anything of that nature. It has to be playing the game at the high level in practice.
All right, so we're going to talk about the roster a little bit, and I want to start off with Juwan Morgan. I think it's huge for this team to get Juwan Morgan back.
Mm-hmm.
You've played with him, you've practiced with him. What's your take on Juwan and what he's going to mean to this team? And do you think he becomes the leader of this team, or would that be for Romeo?
See, the thing is, I think Steve and I talked about this the other day a little bit, and I think that having Juwan, very specifically starting out, Juwan will be the leader of the team. And I think that he will carry that through the whole season. It's just a matter of if Romeo wants to step into that role as well and be somewhat of an assistant to that role. But at the end of the day, especially in today's era, if you're not producing, nobody's going to follow you. If you don't hold some kind of accountability to yourself and produce for the team and practice and the games and everything of that nature, people aren't going to follow you. The guys aren't going to follow you as much. So Juwan's going to have it by default just because he's going to produce. And I think he's going to embrace that just because he's a great dude, really, really smart guy, good head on his shoulders, military family, whole 9 yards. I think that he will more than handle it when that time comes. I think that he'll do a good job at bringing somebody along, because nobody wants to do that by themselves. There's strength in numbers, so if you have a couple guys that can help you rally around you, Juwan being the centerpiece of that, and then have these younger guys come along and just, reinforce what Juwan's saying to get everybody on board. I think that'd be awesome, whether it's Romeo, whether it's Devontae, whether it's Al, whether it's whoever. There's a lot of guys that have good heads on their shoulders down there. And I'm excited for this season, to be quite honest with you. I think it will be interesting to see who steps up into that role, because this will be the first time for me that I'm not there day in and day out. And being able to see who's doing what in practice and who's saying what in the locker room, and even off the court, who's holding guys accountable and everything like that. So it's just, there's a lot of different variables that go into being a leader, and it's not just on the court stuff. It's everything off the court, keeping guys out of trouble, keeping guys in class, keeping them study, keeping their grades up, and just making them be good representatives of the university. And I think that's one thing as well, as teaching them how to represent Indiana University, because Steve and Mike, you guys know, it's diehard fans. It's do or die every single night and week in and week out. If you don't produce, there's going to be backlash and everything of that nature. And it's the same thing off the court. We do something wrong, then at the end of the next morning, it is going to be in the newspapers, guaranteed, 100%. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Any other sport on campus or across the country, it might slide. It'll probably slide. But that's one thing. You have to be on your P's and Q's at all times, just because the spotlight's on at all times, whether you're under the lights or not. So that's just a couple things here about that. You have to be a leader on and off the court.
Couple things here about that. The greatness between Juwan Morgan and myself is that we were both born in Waynesville, Missouri. Did you know that? Both of us are from the exact same town, Waynesville. I was born in Fort Leonard Wood, Waynesville, Missouri, and I would guess that's probably where Juwan was born as well. So, you keep going back to the well. You pull out great players, generation after generation, that lead teams to championships. So
now, Steve,
couple generations in between there, Steve.
All right. Would you
couple generations in between there.
Is there a welcome to Waynesville, home of Steve Risley, 1981 national champions thing up there?
No way.
There is. Yes, there is.
No,
there is.
I
challenge anybody to drive to Waynesville, Missouri. Okay, well, you'll get one. You'll find one. I'll see if I can get one of my cronies from Waynesville. I spent all about 2 days there. My mother was
if you write in cardboard Steve Risley and then attach it to the sign and have somebody take a picture.
That don't count.
And then I think your comment spot on about being representative of the university off the court is so critically important to Indiana University, because Indiana's always tried to hold itself above the fray in terms of its integrity and everything. And I tell you, it would have been very difficult for a lot of the things that we did in the 70s and 80s had social media existed. You guys faced a lot of tougher challenges than we did, because we didn't have iPhones, iCameras, Twitter.
You're using the old rock and chisel, Steve.
Yeah, we used the old rock and chisel. We were able to get away with a lot more stuff than you guys were. But I remember on more than one occasion when I would be under 21 and I would be at a restaurant having a beer with my girlfriend and peel and eat shrimp all I can for 10 cents. And I'd see all of a sudden Jim Cruz's wife walk into the bar. You go, "Hey, Steve." I go, "Oh, hey, Miss Cruz." And then I wouldn't hear a word about it about 3 weeks later when I screwed up in practice. And here it came.
Yep.
"Yeah, Risley, if you weren't worried about being in the bar with your girlfriend, drinking beer and eating shrimp, you wouldn't make stupid plays like that." So it still existed out there. You had to be real careful of it. I think the question you posed about Langford, Isaiah stepped into Indiana, and Woodson was pretty much in the same boat that Juwan Morgan was in. Mike was a senior the year Isaiah came in as a freshman. He had been suffering through bad back and struggled quite a bit with that. But, Isaiah came in immediately and just took over the program. It was Isaiah's team the first time we stepped on the court, and everybody just got in line. Even Whitman and Kitchell, who I consider two of the smartest players ever to play basketball in Indiana, to just really great basketball minds, and even Tolbert and Turner and all the guys on our team. We all just got in with Isaiah, and we let him take over the leadership on court of the team. And Knight even got into it. Reluctantly, Knight got into it. But I think it made all the difference in the success for us to continue to develop through 1980 and allowed us to be as good as we were in 1981. So I think that's a critical step that Archie Miller's got to be pushing toward, that if Langford's going to live up to his height, he needs to come in as a leader. Now, the difference is, and of course we only had Isaiah for 2 years, but I'm not sure he wouldn't have stayed another year had he not won a championship. I think Isaiah really wanted to win a college championship. But, the $10 question is, how long does Langford stay at Indiana? And nobody's going to know the answer to that for a while. But I think that transitional leadership there, going from Juwan, who needs to be the initial leader through his on-court activity and playability, to kind of the mindset leader has got to fall into Langford's hands as quickly as they can get it into there for Indiana to be successful this year.
Well, and I think going back to leadership in general, just because the first couple of years of my career, I mean, we were not a player-led team. We were a coach-led team. And
right.
that's huge in the sense that guys are doing it, if it's a coach-led team, and guys are doing it because the coach is telling them to. They're not doing it for each other, blah, 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 any of that. If you have guys that are pushing you and you have player-led teams, at the end of the day, you're doing it for the guy next to you that's going through the sprints with you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just, I think that it's a good conversation that we're even having the conversation that is going to be a player-led team. And I didn't question that at all in the first place, just because I know how the guys down there, I know the coaching staff and everything like that. And but I think that we're in a good spot as a team, as a program, that having a player-led team is not an issue.
Well, and I know you were real close with Yogi, and I know you were in with him for a while. And Yogi was a player who let him be a coach-led player for the first 3 years of his career. And then when he came back his senior year, Yogi took over that team. And the morphs that Indiana made his senior year and the competitiveness that team got through Yogi just stepping up and making that team a player-led team. And Yogi became not the statistical leader, but so much as the spiritual leader of that team. Totally dynamically changed the whole culture of Indiana basketball in one season and got things going in the right direction. And I think it also shows when you have a team that is coach-led, it shows a lot of insecurity in the coach, in my eyes. When you have a coach that doesn't have enough confidence or trust to let a player lead your team. And this was a wrestling match between Isaiah and Knight. But I give Knight full credit that he finally saw it and said, we're not going to be good if I continue to battle Isaiah for leadership of this team. Isaiah is the leader of this team. And Knight, the greatest coaching move he made was to basically start to slow down his coaching and let Isaiah run the play and the action on the court. And I think that's critical for Indiana to achieve success and the expectations we're starting to develop for this team this year.
Yeah, and going back to that, with having coach and player-led teams, Coach Crean, he did a phenomenal job at pushing. He wanted so bad. He knew that it needed to be a player-led team. He knew he was pushing guys along, trying to stimulate leadership, things of that nature. And then my junior year, we finally clicked. Yogi stepped up and really stepped into that role of being a leader. And that's when we had our run to the Sweet 16 and everything like that. And it was a culmination of guys. Nobody did it day in and day out and was vocal enough and wanted to take the reins from Coach Crean, because he was literally begging people to take it and pushing people to take it and take that leadership of the team. So I think it actually came together that junior year when Yogi did take the reins and finally did run with it, and everybody fell in line.
I'm going to go off the handle. Just a little bit and tell you where I saw a flaw in that. In my era, no parent ever sat behind the bench at a basketball game. No parent. Parents sat in Section 5 right above the wall in seats 18 through 22, and all the parents were removed from the team. Nowadays, when Crean came in, I saw all the parents sitting right behind the bench, coaching their kids, looking at their kids, and telling their kids, you got to be the stars team. For 3 years, I watched Yogi try and build his NBA stats and try and get himself in a position to get drafted. I think he even went and applied for the draft after his junior year. Did he not? And then didn't make it, and then came back and played his senior year, where I think he finally just decided, what the hell, I'm just going to be an IU basketball player, and I'm going to lead this team. But I've said this all along. I think a mistake was, in Knight's era, there was not a single parent that ever sat behind the bench. Those were reserved for girlfriends, family, other people, but no parent. No parent ever. My girlfriend always sat right behind the bench. Sometimes I had 4 of them sitting there in a row.
Yeah, right.
Sure you did.
Right.
I had a Sigma Chi. I had an Alpha Chi.
Indiana School for the Blind.
Yeah, right.
Indiana School for the Blind.
They're all from Terre Haute.
But I think that played some role in that when you start letting.
Just that's a shot.
It's not even the coaching that goes on. It's just the fact that letting them sit back there. It confuses the kids as to who to listen to. They're getting encouragement from one way and not the way the coach went. I think that's a mistake that Coach Crean made with the Indiana basketball, was letting parents sit behind the bench. I've never been a favor of that. Plus, it made me have to go sit next to the band. because that was my season.
You're bitter. You're bitter.
I'm
He's
bitter.
always bitter.
When I watch
He's a
Duke
bitter
North Carolina
old
play,
man.
I see all the former North Carolina players I beat in '81 all sitting gleefully right behind the bench.
You know what?
Right
there, Steve, hold on. Right there, you just said it all. Your statement was this: I saw all those North Carolina players that I beat. You know, if Isaiah Thomas is listening to this, he just sat straight up in his chair and said, "What did he just say?"
What can we expect out of Durham this year? I saw flashes of Durham, but I thought that guy could be all Big Ten. I mean, was he just inconsistent by nature, or did Green make him inconsistent? Because I thought that kid came off some games and played great. The next thing, he was on the bench and vanished. What is it?
Are you talking about Al?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Al is going to be a phenomenal asset for the team.
I think so too.
I think that he's got having that year under his belt, like I said, with the rest of the team. I think that is huge for him. I also think that he's been one of the guys that's worked hardest on his game this summer. His game, his physicality, his strength and conditioning. I mean, I commend Al just following a little from a distance from the team. Al's a good, genuine dude, the way it is. But at the same time, I think he won co-Warrior of the Summer or whatever, won that belt. And I think that's huge for the team just to have, because Juwan was one and he was the one as well. And it's just having guys like that step up and having a jump year like I think that he's about to step into that role of point guard or shooting guard or wherever they need him, to be also a guy that can be in the system for a year already and be somewhat of a leader and a mentor to these young guys coming in.
All right.
And my mentality is I might have played him more and let him just suffer through it last year, and given him more minutes. And it seemed to me he had somewhat of a confidence problem. He kind of felt like every mistake he makes, he's going to get yanked out or was not going to play much the next game. But I see a backcourt of Langford and him, and I see that as a very difficult – if Langford pans out to be what we all think he's going to be, justifiably, I see that as becoming a very difficult backcourt to guard in the Big Ten.
Oh, yeah, and you're forgetting Devontae Green, too.
Devontae Green, I was going to say the same thing, Mike. That dude is probably – he's a firecracker. I mean, he's the point guard version of Troy Williams, in my opinion. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get, but when you get a good Devontae Green, you get a great Devontae Green. So I think it's just a matter of him navigating through this season and becoming more consistent and everything of that nature, because he's one of the most talented players I've been around. When he locks in and is decides he wants to take over a game, he can do it. I think that if you combine those three together this year, it's going to be dangerous.
Well, and the thing about this team is this: we haven't even brought up Zach McRoberts yet.
Right.
I mean, so
that's true.
That's what drove me nuts today, because we were doing a college basketball preview show on Survive in Advance, which everybody can hear at noon daily on thegruelingtruth.net, little plug. But the thing that drove me nuts was there was hardly any place that had IU ranked in the top 25. And when I look at this roster, there's 5 or 6 quality guards in here, and Langford, if he's what he's supposed to be, which we don't know yet, you got Rob Finisi, who's coming in from Lafayette, Indiana, who's a guard also. And then you look at the front court. You got Juwan Morgan, Deron Davis, Jerome Hunter, who will be a freshman, Clifton Moore, Demazi Anderson. I mean, this team, I think, went from being last year 8 or 9 deep to being 12 deep.
Yeah. I can guarantee he's not playing 12,
though. No.
He's going to get in a routine of 8, maybe 9, maybe 10. To get guys breathers, but it's going to be dogfight this year throughout practices to get playing time. Just because I agree with you 100%, Mike, that we are deep this year, and I think we're highly underrated, which, in my opinion, is good. I love that.
Yeah.
Just because teams, you don't have as big of a target on your back. I think we're gonna. I'm looking forward to this year, to be honest with you, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. Yeah.
I thought you dozed off in your old age on us. Go ahead.
No. I'm just letting everybody else get their fair share in. No, I'm pumped and excited. I think this is a team that can get itself into the Sweet 16 and compete for an upper echelon spot in the Big Ten. I don't think the Big Ten is going to be overly strong this year. I think Indiana's got a lot of growing to do. They have a lot of young players, a lot of young key players.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be young. But I think the mindset that Miller sets with this team is to, we're still experimenting with things. We're still being positive. We're going to give everybody an opportunity to make mistakes as long as they're positive mistakes. I think only benefits this team all the way through.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the schedule, the thing I really like about the schedule is in the 2 weeks before the Big Ten opens against Northwestern, you've got games at Arkansas and at Duke. And if you're going to get a team ready, you might as well do that. And I don't think they really, the last few years, the schedule has had away games like that very often, especially right before the Big Ten starts.
Yeah, I think just kind of putting them in the fire right away and letting them figure it out. And when you go through times like that, you play those away games, you figure out what dudes are made of and who's going to step up and who you can count on. Yes, it's early in the season, and dudes are going to change and teams are going to grow out throughout the year. It's nothing to base the season on. But as a coach and as players, you kind of get an idea of, all right, I can do this, or this guy's going to come through in this time at least, or, you have a general idea and starting to be able to mold a little bit more how the rest of the season is going to go. But I don't by any means, win or lose, think that that we as a fan base or as alumni or whatever you want to call us now, I still haven't come to terms with. I'm not on the team yet anymore. But I don't think that win or lose, that's anything to base a season off of. Just because my junior year, we went and played terrible in the Maui Invitational, just absolutely terrible. A lot of alumni were not happy about that. But at the end of the day, that was the year we went to the Sweet 16, beat Kentucky in the tournament, and it turned out to be a decent year. And yes, we would have liked to go further, but if you would have judged the season off the beginning of the season, a couple bad losses early, then, as a team, if we would have given up then we would have never known what happens. But I think that you do get a little bit of baseline to either see where you can go or see where some of your flaws are.
All right, Steve.
Yeah, I like the schedule. I think we play some teams that are going to give us some. Going to Arkansas is not going to be easy. Certainly, that's going to be just playing in a different environment. Duke, obviously, is a game everybody's looking for. Whether we can beat Duke at that point in time, I don't know if we'll be ready, but I think we'll be able to position to give them a good game. Colin, how do you feel about the 20-game Big Ten schedule? You think it's good or bad? We're taking away 2 away games, 2 at-large games now, going into 20. Is that really a better indictment? Still, given the fact that we still put our champion as the Big Ten tournament winner, is still our at-large bid or our automatic bid. Is the 20-game Big Ten schedule worthwhile?
For me personally as a player, I didn't care. There was an adjustment having the Big Ten season start earlier. It was kind of a weird adjustment. But at the end of the day, after you get rolling in the Big Ten, you don't really care. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference. It didn't to me anyways, just because you take life day by day anyways. So to me, it did make a huge difference. I don't know about other guys. Yes, it kind of makes the season feel a little bit longer because you feel like you're in Big Ten season for forever or whatever, because it's starting earlier, blah, blah, blah. But it's at the end of the day, it's just a couple games here or there, and it wasn't a big deal to me, no.
Yeah, schedule-wise, one of the things I kind of, and I see a lot of teams do this in the nation. UCLA is pretty good at doing this. Kentucky does it. I'd almost like midway through the Big Ten season see a non-conference game thrown in there on a Saturday national TV game. Pick somebody big. Maybe Indiana wants to go play UCLA, or just kind of a throwaway game that you can get out there. It doesn't really affect the standings in the conference play, but kind of gives you almost a little bit of a vacation where you're not grinding in the Big Ten, facing opponents knowing that each game you win or lose moves you up and down the standings for seeding purposes. But we don't have that this year. I don't know if that's a product just of scheduling, and maybe Coach Miller will work toward that in the future. But I think it's always good now to kind of get that little break where you're taking on a big opponent somewhere, kind of give you a real litmus test halfway through the season and in your tournament play. See, how are we going to do outside of our tournament? We know how well we're doing against teams that are built very similar to us. Let's go play a Greyhound. If we're a Bulldog, let's go play a Greyhound. Or if we're a Greyhound, let's go play a Bulldog. Let's see how we're stacking up against us. Because if you get in the tournament, the draws are all randomly seeded. You don't know what kind of team you're going to play, what conference you're going to be playing against up front, what your draw is going to look like all along. You're going to have to face a myriad of different teams, and the mentality in tournament play becomes one and done with a much broader scope than what you do by just simply grinding through an 18-game Big Ten schedule after opening up with 2 Big Ten games and then playing a couple of games early in December or late December over the holidays, but then just getting into a straight Big Ten grind. It's almost a little bit of a disadvantage for the Big Ten, I think, in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree.
Got a lot of agreement. You got a lot of agreement on that.
I don't agree with you. I mean, because I think this.
You don't?
I think since the Big Ten games are even bigger, let's say if you look at this and you're at Michigan State and you got to play Iowa the next game, if you sandwich a game against UCLA and you're going to UCLA, you got to travel cross country. You got to play UCLA in a hostile environment. They're a talented team. You're going to have to go through a lot to win that game. You're going to fly back here, and you're probably going to shorten up your preparation time by a day or two also.
Mike,
well, if you plan into it, then you exactly. You play back to back or one night in between or whatever, and you're traveling. But I also think I guess this is somewhat off topic of what Mike just said. But if you just play, straight through, I think that it would be good to have somewhat of a break in between the Big Ten season, go play an out of conference, just because playing a bunch of Big Ten teams in a row, you kind of get in a routine in a sense, and and you kind of get almost dull to it because you keep seeing the same teams over and over and over and over again.
Right.
And if you throw in a little,
it looks to me like the Big Ten wants it this way, though, because when you look at it, most of these games, there's only 3 days rest. The longest days rest you have at any time is 5 days. So it's almost like the Big Ten just wants it this way. I haven't looked at any other teams' schedules to see if they're doing the same thing or not, but I am right now.
Yeah, but to me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, because I think you take a litmus test halfway through the Big Ten season to see how are you going to fare if you're the number 3 seed in the Big Ten, where maybe Indiana ends up, and all of a sudden they're sent out west. They have no benchmark to look at and say, how are we going to prepare? How do we have to alter our play? They get a practice run at that in the middle of the season, or going and playing somebody out of conference, somebody who plays a different style, playing an ACC team or a Big East team or a SEC team or something like that. Just getting a different flavor on your plate once in a while, I think bodes well in your preparation, because, we've often heard everybody's got the will to win, but very few people have the will to prepare to win. And I think taking that mid-season off and taking a game and going somewhere where you got to travel a little bit, you got to stay in a hotel room away from home, you're in a little bit different time zone. I mean, that's what the NCAA tournament's all about. You get sent playing a Mid-East regional in Nebraska, next thing you know, you're playing in Providence, Rhode Island in the East Regional. It's all over the place. And if you aren't really got that kind of mentality of how to do that, how your players are going to react to that thing, I think that's a little bit of a flaw in the Big Ten schedule. Truthfully, that's something I think Indiana, when the first opportunity they get, they really need to take a look at that. Say, let's throw in a big game. If we lose it, it's not going to hurt our standing in the conference. Rankings don't really mean anything. It's more about the power rankings and all the seedings and things of that nature, and that factors in to some degree. But
I think this is something the Big Ten in an entirety is doing. I've looked at Michigan State, Michigan, and Purdue, and nobody here has a game that's not Big Ten once you get past January 1st so far.
Right.
So,
and my answer to that is Big Ten wants to garner all the money from the Big Ten network and make sure all their games are played in-house and played on the Big Ten network so they can get the most money amount of reward. from that, and not necessarily playing them all on national TV or a big game like that. So, and going to a 20-game schedule hurts it as well. It's something I threw out there.
All right, Steve.
If I was building a schedule looking to build a championship team, I would probably want to throw a non-conference game against a big opponent somewhere down the middle of the season. Just give my kids a little bit of break, make it a fun game. Let's go out. Let's flex our muscles outside of our own league a little bit. Let's take on somebody we don't see every day. We've got to prepare a little differently for this team. And we can go out and have some fun, get on national TV, and
just spice it up a little bit.
Take a little trip.
Yeah,
spice it up a little bit, yeah.
I don't disagree because to tell you
the
truth, as a fan, if it's not Indiana, like college football, I like the first 4 or 5 weeks better because once you get into the SEC schedule, I can only watch Ole Miss play Tennessee and Alabama play Georgia. It gets boring. I mean, I want to see something a little bit different. So
right, yeah. I think it's just a flaw in the Big Ten schedule they may want to revisit down the road. Certainly, I think teams with championship caliber. I bet if you look at Duke's schedule, Kentucky's schedule, usually Kentucky plays UCLA somewhere in the middle of the season, don't they? They will. They'll play. They'll
play somebody.
They'll play somebody big, and Duke will do the same thing. North Carolina will, Kansas will. All the other big schools will take somebody and just. I don't want to say it's a throwaway game because it's an important game to win for rankings, but it just gives you a whole different look at your basketball team and kind of takes a little bit of pressure off your team because, Collin, you'll know as much as I do, the Big Ten's a grind. These aren't exactly the glamorous cities in America that you're going to. So you're basically flying in, getting off the plane, going to the hotel, getting in your room with your roommate, getting room service, eating dinner, never leaving the hotel except for the walk, and then going to practice, coming back and staying in your hotel room, getting on the bus, going to the game, and then flying back home. It's not really like you're actually getting to visit these wonderfully, tropical cities or somewhere fun to go. You're kind of just grinding it out.
Here you go.
That can wear down on you a little bit.
Kentucky hosts Kansas January to 26th.
See, there you go. Just
it's good stuff like that. Like at the end of the day, because you get into almost just going through the motions type mindset of we're playing the same teams over and over and over again. It's like getting up in the morning, you splash some cold water on your face. It's just a breath of fresh air to play a different team, different conference. You get to play somebody who's respected throughout the country, and you get a measuring stick midway through the season where you're going to be at during this tournament.
Well, I think that's why you get the problem with the 20-game Big Ten schedule. Because when I look at it, the SEC, the Big 12, all these other ones have 18, and all those teams have a game in the middle of the season like that.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a financial flaw. I think maybe the Big Ten has created, or maybe by taking in too many teams into the Big Ten, we're trying to get everybody to at least play everybody one time. Which I still don't know. Does it even happen now? Does every Big Ten team play each other at least one time in the Big Ten?
They probably do now.
Or are there teams in the Big Ten?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know we play. Do we play Purdue twice or just once this year?
I think it's twice.
Do we play Purdue? I'm looking at the schedule right here.
I think
there's Purdue, and we play Purdue twice. Purdue may be one of the few teams we played twice. Michigan State we played twice. Michigan we played twice. Yeah, but really, we only see these teams one time, but it's all pretty much the same mentality of play. Going into it, you kind of just get that, it's that mentality of just the grind of just, cheeseburger, Pepsi, instead of, no, I'm going to have a hot dog tonight with some sauerkraut and mustard on it or something along those lines.
Collin, that was a John Belushi Saturday Night Live reference there from 1976 with the cheeseburger, Pepsi.
Hey, let me tell you something. Neither one of you did. I saw the very first episode of Saturday Night Live.
So did I.
No, neither one of you did.
I don't think you should tell that at a party, Steve. You shouldn't talk about that.
Steve, I'm 8 years old when the first episode came on. I saw it. Don't give me that. You're not the only old fart here. You're just really old, and I'm just old.
My knees feel old. Does that count?
Oh, wait till you get to be over 40 and tell us how your knees feel.
I don't want to get there.
I got doctors telling me you need a knee replacement, but then I hear that it's really painful for a couple weeks after. But
my mom's had two, so I don't want to hear it.
How bad is it?
Collin, before we get it.
Oh. It's better than it used to be, that's for sure.
All right.
Before we get into taking a look at some of the recruiting that's going on for next year, What does preseason look like in Indiana right now? What's the mentality? Is it a developmental mentality? Is it a we have to be good right now mentality? What is Coach Miller's philosophy mentality between now and the opening of the Big Ten season? What's he trying to accomplish right now? Player personnel, filling roles. What's he trying to accomplish right now?
I think it's cohesiveness. At least that's what it was last year. And yes, it's a different time period for him, having some guys have a little bit of experience or whatever. But last year at this time, we were working on cohesiveness, getting the system, and it was more getting a flow of what we do and being able to adjust on the fly within games. So we would practice that in practice, and also just, figure out who stands where, who brings it every day. We have scoring sheets that kind of rank you in certain, you get minus points for a turnover throughout practice, plus points for assists, points, made shots versus missed shots, stuff like that. And there's a point system, and they post those in the locker room every single day, and they're updated all the time. And you see where you stand, and he plays who produces. So, it's competitive. It's competitive to the point where you look at that, sheet going into practice or whatever, right as you're getting dressed or, getting taped or whatever it is, you look at that sheet and you figure out where you stand, and well, I might not play very much next game because I haven't done a lot, or this guy's right on my tail. I might be sitting at the top spot, but this guy's right on my tail right now, so I got to, I have to produce this practice. I have to produce this week. I have to step my game up because I'm being graded every single day. It's not like I just go in and, I did this last year, so I'm going to play this year type thing. No, we're watching you every single day, and you have to produce. You have to get better.
One more question, then we'll wrap up here because I know we got some time constraints going on this night. And we'll save recruiting for maybe the next show we do, kind of give something to perch on to next show. But do you guys film practice?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, we did, yeah. And every day we came into practice, we were obligated to go into our own little corner, and there usually was a stack of notes of nothing but film spliced together of what I did in practice. And the really funny part was one time Knight was down on Landon, and he had 25 minutes of film of Landon standing on the sidelines. Now, well, I would guess he spliced that off of about 15 or 20 practices. But he had 20 minutes of film on the video of Landon just standing on the sideline, drinking water out of a water bottle. And then he showed it to Landon, and then he put it up on the entire screen for the entire team to watch for pre-game film, pre-practice film of Landon just standing on the sideline with a towel in one hand and a water bottle in the other hand.
So were you guys sitting in your lockers with a film projector?
No, we all had cubby holes we went to. We had and then we were supposed to find a coach, and at the end it would be a list of notes of things that we needed to work on before practice. So for a 3:30 practice, you usually were at Assembly Hall by 2:00, getting taped and then getting into the film room and looking at your films, and then getting a coach, knocking on the coach's door. Of course, getting shit thrown your way when you knock on the coach's door, and then you go out and you work individual one-on-one, and you pretty much be in a full sweat by the time you went in for team films and practice. I'm sure it's the same for you too, Collin. There's no difference there. And then you went out and did team films, and so there's a lot of effort that goes on to it that a lot of people don't understand that these kids do day in and day out while doing their classwork, maintaining their grades, and trying to maintain some semblance of a social life, which isn't very much at all. Trust me. Very few kids play ball at that level. Collin will attest to you. You don't have much of a social life. You don't want to go anywhere. You hole up in your room. You find a girlfriend, and you find somebody that you just want to relax and try and get some rest and do it. It is a 24-hour-a-day job down there. So with that being said, let's wrap up today's show. Let's save the recruiting for next year for next show. I think it's been a great first show. Collin, thank you for joining our team. I think you're going to be a welcome addition. Provide some insight, and you're bringing back old memories to me already. And I hope you don't divorce yourself from IU basketball. Find your place with it. Stay with it. It's a little tough to walk away the first year or two, but don't ever give up on it. Don't make the game quit you. Don't quit the game, because it's a wonderful place to be. It's a wonderful program to be a part of, and the culture there remains the same no matter what the record is of any given team. So, Mike, you want to wrap us up? Tell us what's kind of going to happen here for the rest of the season with IU basketball, when we can start anticipating regular shows. We'll leave that all up to you, since you're the producer of this thing.
We're going to do a weekly show once a week, but we're also going to do after the games like we did last year. If you listened in, we'll do a 20 to 25-minute wrap-up show after each game. And then, of course, our weekly show. And I know, Steve, you have us some guests lined up for that weekly show?
I think Collin and I will both work on guests from both ends. Yeah. We'll, between the two of us, we can bring in some old players and some new players. And we'll try and make sure we get some relevant players to come in and talk about Indiana basketball yesterday and about Indiana basketball today. And people will get a little bit better flavor. I think that's something that a lot of other shows aren't going to be able to produce, is not hearing what somebody's opinion is of something. But with Collin and myself, you're going to hear what actually is going on or what went on in the locker rooms, and how the tradition, while it may be years apart, marries itself together and still is why Indiana basketball stays great, even though it has a down period that it's had. And it's certainly on the rise again and becoming one of the most relevant basketball programs in the country within the next year or two very quickly. So I think you'll enjoy the program throughout the year. Collin's going to be a welcome addition, and I've already enjoyed having him as part of the team. Mike, we can jettison you if we need to.
You know, what I was thinking is this. I like Collin a lot more than I do you, and it's probably going to be easier to get a guess because I think Collin's probably a lot more likable guy.
I will give you Kitchell's number as we hang up. No problem.
I've already got Collin's number, Steve. I've already got it. I was just trying to scribble up some pictures for some artwork for Mike,
no problem,
Ted, and
because
Collin.
Whether I'm on the air or not, I'm still getting 30% of everything we make, which is zero right now.
Steve.
If a sponsor steps up,
you
that might be something.
All right, guys. We're going to wrap the show up. I want to thank Collin and Steve again for coming on. Collin, I apologize that now you got to spend more time with Steve. I want to remind everybody, if you're listening live, in 30 minutes, we'll have the CFL Weekly Show with Robert Drummond, who started at Syracuse University on an undefeated team in 1988, played for the Philadelphia Eagles, and then won 4 Grey Cups in the CFL. So our CFL Weekly Pick'em Show will be at 9:30 on thegruelingtruth.net. Then at 10:15 tonight, we will have the preview for the big showdown between Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez, and that'll be at 10:15. And then tomorrow, of course, as always, right around 1 o'clock, you can head to thegruelingtruth.net. And what we got, Steve, I tried to call you earlier, but I couldn't get a hold of you. But we're going to do a Bengals-Ravens preview tomorrow. But we're also going to have Joe Kelly, who was the starting linebacker for the 1988 Bengals, on the show because they're honoring the Bengals' 30th anniversary of the AFC Championship team. And he's actually at a dinner right now, and he's going to try to get a couple more players from that team to come on. And we'll go on with them. We'll preview the game tomorrow night, but what I think will be a little bit more better is not a word. That sounded like Risley talking there. Jeez, Risley, you've had a bad influence on me. We'll sit down and we'll talk probably for a half hour, 40 minutes, just about that 1988 season, which if you're in the Cincinnati area, you know how special it was. So you can check us out noon tomorrow with that. I want to remind everybody that you can follow us on The Grueling Truth at Grueling Truth. Steve, what's the Indiana basketball handle on Grueling Truth? Or on Twitter?
I think it's, I'm going to have to look that up. How sad is that?
Steve came
You're getting old.
I think it's Grueling Hoops or something.
Now, we are going to go every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, correct, for the preseason? So we are on again next Wednesday night at 8 o'clock?
Sure.
Collin, you okay with that?
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay, hang on here. Let me give you the name of this damn
I think
basketball
you called it
website.
at Grueling Hoops or something, didn't you?
That's Survive in Advance. I'll get it and put it on there.
All right, guys. Steve will repost it
don't
at
follow us
Grueling
yet.
Truth, so you'll be good there. What?
Here it is.
Oh, dude.
Man, it's actually been a year since we've used it. Now I lost it again. Grueling Truth, Indiana Hoosier Basketball Weekly.
That's a long name.
You can go there. Well, that
we need to shorten that up.
Yeah, you got to shorten that up.
Yeah, we will.
Risley.
We'll rename it. We'll just call it the Collin and Steve Show and just go from there.
Sure we will. We'll just call it the Collin Show. Collin, Ted, and Mike. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up.
All right.
I want to remind everybody.
Hey, Collin, stay on the line if we hang up.
Okay. I want to
All right,
remind everybody that you can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you hear sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Collin Hartman, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.